The first question I have is rather general. Many argue that one of the most important duties of any GUSA executive is going to be communication with the administration, making sure that we get student needs across there. So what style of communication will each of you respectively be adopting with the administrators, and how will you manage to accomplish things in collaboration with them?
So our platform, obviously we take a collaborative approach. You can't get anything done with demands. You have to be working and find a middle ground for any issue that's presented to you. Student body wants something done. It can't just be done like that. You need to collaborate with administrators, various departments, and come to a middle ground. At that, but there are some things that we can't argue about. You know, for example, campus plan in 2010, we didn't have any say in the campus plan.
That's 30 seconds.
No.
30 seconds is very short, guys.
Wait a minute, it's not even 30 minutes. Sorry.
Okay. Well, first of all, and I think this is a crucial question to this entire campaign. First of all, Abby has the most experience and the best relationships with administrators out of any candidate. She's one of 2 students that can present to the board of directors this year and has formed the personal relationships with top administrators and the board of directors. However, additionally, we sees GUSA as a legitimate voice of the student body, and the only way to do that is by engaging students in mass and unifying them so that we can present the administration with a...
Mr. Simons, that is 30 seconds. Sorry. It's fast.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that Sarah and I are both coming into this with really a track record that we want to talk about when it comes to working with administrators. Sarah's been able to obtain the first admitted transfer student day. She's been able to get agreements to start a transfer living learning community this next year. She now has phone calls to all incoming transfer students, and I could go on, but it'd take longer than 30 seconds. On my side of things, me and my co-director Ben have worked to have student conduct email to change every time there's a change to the university code of conduct. So, yeah.
All right, so to actually answer the question, I think that you have to go with a collaborative approach, but you have to come in with a solution in mind. You can't just complain to the administrators, and I think that me and Tim have found this out through our years in GUSA. You can't come to the administrators, just complain, this is wrong, we want you to fix it. You need to come in with a solution and then negotiate with them for a kind of moderated settlement, I guess. So you want to be collaborative, but you need to be forceful collaborative. So you have to force your way into the meeting, which can be difficult. It's a lot easier when you're an executive. When you're in the Senate, it's very hard to get meetings with administrators, I've found. And so you need to be forceful and have an idea.
Sorry.
Work doesn't start when you get into office. Chris and I have done our due diligence in working with the administration through and through. As a GUSA senator, I've had experience, we don't need to get into that, but Chris and I have met with over 10 administrative departments and sat down with them extensively over the past 3 months to understand what can we get done, how can we get it done. Yes, it is a two-way street, and recognizing that there are many working variables within this system. Thank you.
From that, I believe we'll be going into the next question from the Georgetown Voice.
Yep. So I think we all personally love and adore Trevor and Omika, but I mean, what is one specific thing that you think stands out as the best thing they accomplished during their administration?
So it's me first? Okay, cool. So I think the best thing they've accomplished is starting down the process of tiered access to benefits. I think that's something that a lot of groups have been pushing for a while, and I know GUSA has been working on for a while, so I think it's a great, great first step that unrecognized groups were able to table at this year's CAB fair and start down the road, which we intend to continue, of tiered access to benefits policy.
Yeah, I think the really important stuff actually just has been happening this last week with the shared the cost sharing plan between Student Affairs and GUSA, providing disability accommodations to student groups for events that they hold. That's all part of our goal to make campus and student events more accessible, and it's awesome to see that start happening on the GUSA side.
So I think that what I've liked the most about them is their willingness to branch into new territories. So I'll focus on the Multicultural Council. So obviously I think everybody knew it was going to be hard, but what I've admired about them is their willingness to try and get it done and work for the future and like getting a new system for multicultural groups that I think with work in the long run will become something that's institutionalized in the student body and will really change the way we do funding and treat different groups on campus.
think looking at this on a more macro scale, Trevor and Omika did a pretty stellar job in looking into not only, yes, the Multicultural Council was an example, but they looked at groups that were traditionally untapped. And so that's one of our main goals with GUSA is reaching out to the students that aren't traditionally represented. Also with the ASL interpreters, Ryan hit the nail on the head with that. So I think that it's the start of conversation of getting that collaborative nature and actually making it a force for change in a positive direction. Great job.
I'm also going to agree with you. Tiered access to funding. Unrecognized groups dealing at SAC Fair. Tiered funding would give us the ability to have a more rich campus life because there would be more student groups, each with individualized funding plans, which would allow for a lot of SAC resources to be saved, while at the same time allowing for students to pursue what they love.
Sure. At the discretion of the moderator, we'll be extending discussion for about 2 minutes, so you may make a comment if you are interested.
So all I want to add is just that my running mate was the only one involved in the cost-sharing plan with the Tromika administration, the 80-20 cost-sharing plan for ASL and accessibility benefits.
Well, let me just.
I'll go with Meredith and then Ryan.
I would just like to thank you, Will, for noting that. I think on FINAP, it was kind of a collaborative nature in working with the Trevor and Omika, FINAP, the Senate to get this work done. And so it's not ever a one-man band in GUSA. It never happens like that. There's way too much red tape. It's just not feasible. And so Abby spearheaded some excellent work with Trevor and Omika, but I have to say that it was a group effort.
And frankly, I think generally, guys, we could really use to improve the tone of GUSA to just say, you know, we got a really good result out of this, and it shouldn't really be a focus of ours who's responsible for it. And I know Abby played a huge role in it, and that's awesome, and we should encourage that sort of cross-GUSA collaboration. But this is really about the result in the end. We reached a good agreement for disability access on this campus, and we should just be proud for that reason alone.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to comment?
Just to wrap that up, I think that this is a very tangible example of how proactive GUSA can be when you are persistent with initiatives, because you don't always see the results. People will, for instance, composting. Mandeville is doing a phenomenal job with that, but literally the university just, it seems impossible. But the 80-20 plan is something where you walked out of Dr. Olson's office and Trevor and Omika had a tangible result. And so working in a collaborative nature, seeing eye to eye and coming to terms, you can get results.
Are there any other candidates?
I have nothing really to add to that.
Okay.
GUSA can be effective is basically what I got out of that, so good job, guys.
In that case, we'll move on to any questions. Question from FINAP at this point.
I'm Robert Shepard, chair of FINAP. This is James Myerson, member of FINAP. How do you envision your executive's relationship with the Senate, and particularly with the Finance and Appropriations Committee?
I think on a fundamental level, we are going to work with you guys to make sure that the priorities that we think are really important coming in, making sure that the GUSA fund has the money that it needs to fund a lot of projects that unrecognized student groups want to take on, making sure that our new student leadership fund can be brought up to speed quickly so that we can allow students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds pursue what they want to at Georgetown. So really it's a matter of working back and forth and making sure we're able to reach equitable agreements on those priorities.
All right, yeah. I think that it needs to improve dramatically. I think that there's a gap in FINAP and what the rest of GUSA does and what the administration does in general. And I think it's because of the way FINAP's elected, which is just a structural issue. So I think that the incoming executive needs to have a much closer relationship with FINAP, and FINAP also needs to have a much closer relationship with GUSA in general. As a member of the Student Life Committee, I can't really tell you a lot of the time what FINAP's doing in their meetings, which I think is something that needs to improve dramatically in the next administration as well.
So being a second-term senator on FINAP, pardon me, I think there are structural issues with GUSA. Let's all face it. It doesn't need to be said again. At the end of the day, I think that Georgetown is very siloed. We see that with the administration, we see it with student groups, and therefore it makes it very difficult to really understand what's going on. So I think FINAP could be doing a better job and working with GUSA more collectively to recognize, okay, let's foster those relationships and have a more functional relationship so that way we see where the money's going. Thank you.
My lawyer says I can't answer the question. So sorry. Well, anyway, I think GUSA should work with FINAP. Just as Meredith said, the Senate and the executive branch need to work together, collaborate to have FINAP play a bigger role in GUSA. See, FINAP is a little bit removed from the student body and a little bit removed from what the Senate and the executive branch need to be focusing on, which is essentially just acting as a conduit for what student.
There's seconds now elapsed.
Funding affects everything at Georgetown. And every student group leader always complains about lack of funding. So something that I think we need to make sure is that students feel connected to the funding process and that students feel as if they're truly represented in the finite budgeting process, which is something when talking to student group leaders, they haven't seen the kind of transparency and engagement with GUSA as a whole, which is something we're going to look to improve.
I don't know if you guys plan on wanting to extend discussion at all.
Yeah, we'd like to, and if we could put a theme on that.
No, there are two of you. I will be letting you do one normal question, but for the purpose of the extension.
Yeah, if you want to just sort of extend the discussion with the idea of how you plan to, if just following Will's comment, how you plan to expand the amount of money available for student activity.
Actually, sorry, you'll have to ask that in the next question. I just wanted to get any additional comments on what they said.
Oh, no, okay.
In that case, unless any other candidates have comments, we'll go to the questions in plan. Okay, thank you.
Great. So crafting platforms is difficult. There's a lot of facets, a lot of things that you have to hit, a lot of language to craft. So I'm curious as to what is an issue on which you and your respective presidential candidate disagree?
Okay, so I think that an issue that me and Tim disagree on is divestment in particular. I think that we have different views on the effectiveness of divestment and whether social responsibility for right to exist basically is a thing. And while I don't know how big that is in the overall scheme of things for the incoming administration, I know that it is a point of contention between us. But I think that you overall just learn to coexist and you learn to move on towards the bigger issues, which I think we agree largely on.
I have to cut you off
So our platform kind of speaks to it, the tone in which we are getting into the nitty-gritty, how are we going to do X, Y, and Z, in what time frame, etc. And I think that also mimics Chris's and mine relationship in that we have different facets that we bring to the table. I'm more of a logistical person and he's more of the personable, very warm. You'd get that after speaking for 15 seconds. And so it's just a matter of working together with our different leadership styles.
So one issue that Joe and I really disagree about is transfer students. I'm personally a transfer, and I want to extend charms to transfer students. I want to support Sarah Margolis' fantastic transfer council, continue the transfer mentor program, and extend the transfer LLC. But Joe wants to build a wall around campus to keep transfers out, and he wants to start a busing program. He wants to start a busing program to ship them back to their old schools. Horrible.
So unfortunately, I don't see eye to eye on the New York Yankees. But besides that, I think we also disagree sometimes on how exactly to get things done with the administrators. Because she has these personal relationships, sometimes she would be able to just call up an administrator, talk to an administrator, and explain the issue, while I would want to take more of the kind of mobilizing approach, like a social media campaign.
Sarah and me entirely disagree on dining halls. Sarah has this weird obsession with Leos, and I mean bizarre. But it's okay because I can get behind eventually building a second dining hall on campus. Sarah, having transferred from GW, really does appreciate having one dining hall on campus for people to come and gather and talk. So I can see the merits in that too. I just think, eventually, long term, we could use a second dining hall. But we'll agree to disagree on that one.
Unless there are any candidates who wish to continue discussion, or if you have any questions, or candidates, we will, I believe, move on. Georgetown Voice.
GUSA, participation in, sort of GUSA from other students outside of the organization itself has been historically pretty limited. And I mean, even voting turnout, I think it was around 50% last year. So not even that many people vote in the election. What do you see as your best strategy, specifically? So one sort of thing to increase general student engagement with GUSA.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. So we're all about the personality approach. GUSA has a stigma. It's known for its aloofness and being aloof, not necessarily knowing what's getting done. It tends to be the concentrated 50 to 75 students who care. But building and fostering personal relationships will change that. And Chris and I have seen that day in and day out, whether it's working with administrators or with student groups that are traditionally untapped.
So we plan on mobilizing the student body through social media, specifically through creating humorous ideas, advertising that would make people want to listen to us. For example, the heckler, we started 9 months ago with 101 likes and now has over 2,500. It's something that people actually want to listen to. If we apply an idea like that to GUSA, people are going to be involved. And when it comes to something like the campus plan or transparency on campus, people are going to listen and they're going to become active.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's so crucial to have a strong social media, but followed up with the personal outreach to improve those connections with GUSA. What the Students Against Restrictive Housing Policy Facebook campaign showed me is that students are really passionate about improving Georgetown and really want to help. They just need to be kind of pointed in the right direction and shown how they can help, and they will get involved.
I think it's a matter of demonstrating tangible advocacy results. If we can go to every student community on campus and say, this is what GUSA has in mind to be able to do right now to help you, I think that's how you get more student buy-in. If you have an agenda for every part of this campus that really reflects those needs and those desires, then I think you really can boost participation in GUSA advocacy priorities.
Yeah, so I think that you have to move beyond like a Facebook campaign. You can get 500 likes on the Facebook page, but ultimately your voter turnout depends on delivering results to the voters. So on things like the campus plan, you need to I think we just need to sit down with as many students as possible, have common room meetings and say, this is how this is affecting you and this is why you should be angry, this is why you should be involved. You have to explain it to them. It can be through humorous outreach, it can be through getting people riled up, but you have to move beyond social media and get boots on the ground and just move in there and continue and do like hands-on outreach basically.
Thank you. Unless there are any further questions or comments?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I just want to say this is more than just voter turnout. This is about engaging students throughout the next year. People get engaged in GUSA during these 2 weeks, but after that, the creativity and innovation and energy regarding getting GUSA's word out there disappears. And that's something that Abby and I will fundamentally change. We want to fundamentally, from the base level, change the way GUSA interacts with the student body. And one major part of that is social media, but it's not the only part.
Mr. Rivera?
Yeah, I just want to respond to what you said as well. You said, we just need to tell them why they need to support us and get involved. I think that's part of the problem, part of the GUSA mindset. We can tell people as many times as they can possibly hear it why they should get involved, but ultimately they won't because they don't have faith in the institution. Part of that problem is because people release 40-page platforms and then live up to 20, 30% of it. And, that mitigates trust.
Okay, thank you. Eric?
Speaking to a few points, I think GUSA has a tendency to fall into its institutionalized ways of doing things. Getting your boots on the ground and going in and kind of saying how to do things is not going to be effective. Never has been, never will be. Secondly, I think that social media is great in our millennial day and age and everything. However, fundamentally, that doesn't tell you what people need and actually what they want. Chris and I don't have the answers, but people on our team, people in the audience, you guys, you have interests and passions, and with those passions come answers. And so it's about leveraging those personal relationships to actually get things done.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I think I want to clarify things. When you say why you want to do it, you show them how it's effective. A lot of people just don't know because there's not any real report issued to them and say, this is how it's affected you. There's a lot of things on Facebook, like you have your cool like our status, hold up our billboard saying, I believe in this. And that doesn't get students involved. That gets them turned off, I believe. You need to show them that you care, and if you care, they'll care as well. So the thing that we're doing with the campus plan subcommittee for the upcoming referendum, we're gonna have a social media campaign. We're also gonna go into common rooms and show this is why you need it. We're releasing reports. You need to have a sustained campaign to get students involved throughout the year. You can't just have a turnout drop in the beginning of the fall where GUSA doesn't do anything and nothing really happens. You need to continue throughout the year and be persistent.
Sorry, your 2 minutes have elapsed. We'll be now moving on to the question of finance.
So yeah, to repeat, do you plan to expand the amount of money available for student activities? Obviously, you're going to say yes, but how? And we'd like to know some specific points of the plans that you have in place at this point.
Okay, so that's
Right. So in addition to raising $120 more per student for student activity fees, 80 of which can be allocated to specific organizations of their choice, we do plan on robbing kids that look like yuppies, and taking their watches, taking their gold rings, and contacting their parents.
So we plan on raising the student activities fee $44 a person. Right now it's at $156 per year. We'll raise it to $200, but allow those $44 to be allocated to the group of their choosing. However, since it's a line item in tuition, it will be covered by financial aid. Yeah.
Our idea is really to start a student activities capital campaign. This hasn't been attempted by GUSA before, but this is really a new way for GUSA to engage a lot of young alumni that aren't really committed to donating directly to the university, but would be interested in donating to student groups and students that they've been involved with or have recently participated in.
So I'd like to remind everybody here that capital is not raised in a vacuum. If you increase the student activities fee, which I think will increase over time because it's obvious that there is a need for more money, you're asking for more money from each student who's already paying $60,000 a year. Instead of just saying, we need to increase this $44, and we need to also take a look into what else are we paying for in our tuition that could be shifted to student activities, which impacts us a lot more than, say, paying $70 per language class or like paying well above the market rate for Yates. Pushing the administration of some of these items, it might take time, but we'll be able to achieve more gains that way than just soaking the student body for more money.
Okay, so first off, student activities fee will continue to increase due to inflation. However, whether it's going to increase by $5 or $44, I think it's a discussion that needs to be had with the student body. Chris and I have an idea of a program called Buy a Brick. I have experienced it at 2 other universities I've attended in which alumni, current students, faculty, and staff can purchase a brick for $200 to $500, and then that will go in to fund other initiatives that we have or to find out.
Thank you. And yeah, we're going to extend comments to this one, Mr. Brady. But actually, first, let's just, do you guys have any specific questions on what this said?
Yes. So at least one of you said that you want to raise the student activity fee, but you do realize that that has to pass a referendum where a majority of voting students vote to raise the amount that they pay the university every year. Do you think that's actually possible?
Yes, I do. Oh, sorry. No,
You can just
no, really, please, I'm sorry.
Let's go. I mean, we'll just start.
No, sorry.
Okay, well, I guess to answer that, I believe that if you have a sustained outreach program, it will pass, but it's passed before in the past, and it will probably pass again in the future, because I think everybody wants more funding, but I think that funding on campus is intimately broken because we keep saying we'll continue paying for more things on top of everything else that we keep paying for. So our tuition increases, our student fees increase, and overall we're just like, there's a lot of waste and graft in what we're paying for that we want to try. We think GUS can make a larger difference in cutting that out. As to the idea of like shifting money towards groups specifically, I feel that might cut out a lot of the smaller groups that add so much to this campus, like community garden and things like that, that don't have as many members but add a lot to this campus where you might not see as many people allocating their money.
I'm actually going to cut you out there so we have enough time for everyone. Connor.
I just want to respond to that point quickly. That's why a lot of this money is being allocated towards specific clubs, but a lot of it's going back into a pool. A lot of orgs like PAC, for example, advisory board, and media advisory board, those collect everything and redistribute to different groups. Similarly, I just wanted to mention the funding approach that we want is we want an 80-20 approach where 80% of funding or revenue that comes into groups on these boards goes back to the top, and 20% is allocated directly to the groups that make it. So there's a big problem right now with groups kind of sucking up money from other groups, and one way that we think we could fix that is through allocation of specific funds and kind of an absorption of other funds into boards.
Will?
Yeah, the students will be able to directly allocate their $44 increase to a specific club of their choosing. So if they're really passionate about a small club, they will be able to increase the supplementary funding for that small club. Additionally, students are already paying this $44 in terms of dues for other organizations, whether it's for food or for shirts or for trips. But what this $44 increase does, because it's covered by financial aid, is actually shrink the socioeconomic gap between students who cannot afford this $44 out of pocket.
So just recognize that when you increase student activities fee, despite it being covered by financial aid, proportionally your tuition is going to increase. So if you're talking about a divided two campus because of socioeconomic levels, I think that financial aid is not going to cover it. You're still going to have an increase. Secondly, I think shifting around money, it's always been attempted, but I think that there needs to be a little bit more resourcefulness in how we do this, because clearly people get cut in different places and it may not be practical.
Okay, thank you very much. And if anyone that wants to allocate like $5 to the election commission to buy this timer, you know.
Done.
We can go
All right, so you all have that. Anyway, moving on to the FOIA, I believe.
So I think it's clear that student funding is not the only impediment to the growth of student clubs here on campus. There are certain groups such as PAC or club sports in which space, specialized space, is a major concern. I wonder how you would address an issue like that where specialized space is required or students don't have the same access to space or, around campus, especially with Wash Black Box potentially closing and other things like that.
Oh, and just before we begin, due to time, this will be kind of the last round of questions from you three. And so we're just going to kind of be keeping this one speaking.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, yeah, cool. So first of all, something we've heard from a lot of PAC groups is the necessity of a centralized booking system for space, because it's not very clear how, when you go through the PAC system now. Additionally, we want to make sure in the campus plan that the administration takes into account the need for space, especially for arts groups. So we want to advocate for when they decide to build new buildings, if they do, that they include this kind of multi-purpose art space in the planning of that new building. An idea for club sports is when they finish the IAC, turning the varsity weight room into a club sports weight room and allowing club sports teams to reserve that space.
Okay, thank you.
I think the problem of space extends well beyond just PAC groups. I think it affects every student group on campus, and I think we need to look at innovative ways to repurpose existing space on campus to meet those needs, because Sarah and I are going to be opposed to a new building until we complete a lot of deferred maintenance projects across campus. So specifically, we want to look at how we turn Carroll Parlor and Healy Hall into a student study space, into co-working space, something like that, and look at the long-term future for the 6th floor of Rice, which is currently completely unused.
Okay, thank you.
So for space usage for PAC and club sports, one, you need to create a centralized booking system, like Will said, so make it a lot easier for groups like this to fund, to get spaces. Second, you need to get rid of a lot of the booking fees that people face for these spaces. For example, Tap and Jacks, as a SAC organization, has to spend huge amounts of money on getting spaces with wooden floors like Copley and like Lorfink Auditorium, which cost way more money. Having a regular space with wooden floors that they can practice in would save everyone a lot of money. So that's another thing we need to work on. Then getting rid of the seniority system of getting spaces is another thing.
Sorry.
So cutting right to the chase, we met with Robin Morey, VP of Facilities. First off, to clear the air, he's not the devil that he's painted to be. I know housing and space is obviously a limited resource, but he's working in our favor. There's places like Darnell Basement, other unused places. Yes, Rice is in the long-term plan, but there's definitely answers that we have within the next year that could be feasible for change. We aren't going to have a new school of engineering or a new gym done in the next year, so can't promise you that, but Robin's for sure willing to work with us.
So in addition to centralizing booking spaces through Hoya Link and creating a liaison for OCAF, and also campus plan renovations of student buildings, we do want to turn Leo's into a skyscraper and have that be just full of empty rooms. Where no reservation is required and you can just do whatever you want. It's gonna extend into the clouds. You guys can go nuts.
Thank you, and with that we'll move on to the Georgetown Voice.
Okay, so I think this is going to come up at some point or other. Basically, I think all of you guys were contacted by the Georgetown Israel Alliance recently, and this is all come out with a pledge they had about boycott, divestment sanctions, and they ask you all to sign on to this pledge, throwing your support behind it and whatnot. And there's a lot of sort of varying accounts of what happened going about, and I think that if each of you could give sort of the audience an account of your experience with that and what you saw happen, that would be useful.
Yeah, so that's my question. within the campaign, we had internal discussions about signing an agreement. We came to the conclusion that something like that is really not relevant to GUSA, and frankly, we think we can sum up our feelings on it by saying that we support free speech for everyone on campus in a way that doesn't make any student feel threatened or unsafe.
Okay, so I guess that there's been allegations saying that there was a lot of like misinformation spread. The pledge was pretty clear. It said we oppose any effort to have BDS, like boycott, divert, or whatever it was, boycott, divest, sanction. And Tim and I decided that we don't support the like blocking of having people, Students for Justice in Palestine should be allowed to protest in favor of that. But we decided that if that bill, there's a bill that came in front of GUSA to sign saying that we formally endorse this, we would not do that.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, there is a lot of different stories floating out there. We were approached, and to be honest and transparent, first off, this is a very controversial global issue, something that, I'll make a joke, but Dick Cheney wouldn't even handle, you know? And so when it comes down to it, this is not something that GUSA should be handling, and I think I mimic what Ryan says. Free speech is the epitome of what GUSA needs to be an advocate for, and so for the MSA and the Israel Alliance, goes both ways.
Thank you.
So our account is that we received an email, we asked them to elaborate, we decided to go against it, then we met with them, and then we still decided to go against it. We're committed to open dialogue, and we felt as though it was kind of asking us to take a position on a very important issue that we had no right to take at this point in time. I believe we were the only ticket to say that we were interested in it from the beginning. Although J Street has just released a new statement that is all about open dialogue, and we are interested in that because it has us take no stance except for pro-discussion.
Mr. Ryan, thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, so a number of members of our staff acting independently had helped or had worked with GIA to craft the language. However, Abby and I never explicitly signed on to this pledge, and while, sorry,
Oven's going off?
sorry, so we never signed on to this pledge, and I agree with the other candidates that this is something that extends well beyond the scope of any student government's power. I'm running for the vice presidency of a student association, not of the United States.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on to our final
This is
question.
not the United States.
We've been lied to.
Now that we've moved on to Soviet Georgetown, I'm glad you're fine now on the matter.
Okay, so there's been talk of the 40-page campaign platforms. I know this is, so what do you think that, and I'll throw a Mickey Mouse item out here, what do you think of the sort of largest points of your platform you might not be able to accomplish?
This is mine. So I think that the larger points of the platform that I don't say we can't accomplish, but I say it requires a lot of work to accomplish are getting more members on the ANC. Almost everything regarding the campus plan is stuff that is very long-term and focused, and you have to fight to get people. So getting members of the legislature on the Georgetown Community Partnership, not on the working committee, but on the steering committee that's actually drafting language. Getting these things delayed is a lot harder to do because you're dealing with zoning commissions, you're dealing with the administrators, but it's something that we need to do.
Thank you.
So we precisely and strategically did not make a 40-page platform because that's traditional, and we know that only 20% of it will be actually accomplished. So I think the biggest change for us, and that's will not necessarily be the biggest challenge for us, but collectively recognizing that GUSA will not have this stigma, is that there is genuinely a collective character in our platform, because it is a skeleton to outline the collaborative nature that will come about in this year. We can't predict what will happen tomorrow, but I know we'll work together for it.
Thank you.
So there's one part of the platform that I really regret putting on there because now looking back at it, it just sounds stupid when I say it out loud. We said that we wanted to give athletes infinity shotgun privileges. We said that we wanted to give athletes the ability because, you know, they come here and they protect Georgetown. They're so strong. We wanted to give them guns that they could use forever. As it turns out, there are regulations on that. And even if you have like a carry concealed license, and even if you have like a lockbox, you're still not allowed to have a shotgun on campus, especially when you're wielding it wildly.
So I think brevity is an important issue to breach. The 40 pages are necessary because there are so many issues facing students, and there are so many ideas that students have in practical ways to improve this university. However, I think the most difficult thing is the culture change within GUSA. It's something that's hard to measure, and it's something that will require a lot of focused effort from day one. And that's something that we intend to work on.
Our platform's actually 48 pages long. I'm pretty damn proud of it. I know my whole team is, because we've gone through and we've tackled issues that affect every single marginalized student group across campus. And if you think you can find one page in there that affects one group of students that you want to cut, we can do it, but we're going to keep talking about ideas that affect every student on this campus, because just to make a short platform for the sake of making it shorter and making it something that we know we can accomplish in the first day of our administration, that's bull.
Alright. We'll offer 2 minutes for follow-up.
Sure. So several of you, looking specifically at Szymanski and Cheney, didn't actually say the one platform item that you will not be able to accomplish.
Or more specifically, I mean, rather than something that we would like to see cut, it's just what would you think is the most difficult part?
I think without question the most difficult part is the fact that Sarah and I really do want to level the playing field for students at Georgetown, whether that means in a socioeconomic sense, whether that means we're leveling the playing field for LGBTQIA students, whether we're helping students out who are coming from different cultural or communities of color, or different cultural backgrounds, or from communities of color. So, I mean, that's something that requires a lot of work, it requires a lot of effort, and we recognize that that's not going to be done in 1 year.
Specifically, I'll speak to it because I have quite a bit of experience in the sustainability realm. The way sustainability is currently set up at Georgetown is Audrey Stewart is working her butt off as a one-man band in the office, and she's trying to push things bottom up, while Joya has these ambitious 20-year goals, and he's only doing so much to infiltrate the campus as a whole and actually reach those goals. And so bridging that, I think, is very difficult. Students with our environmental council, I think that can help bridge those two and empower students to talk with Joya and help Audrey, but it's a big task to conquer.
All right, thank you. And due to time, I will not be taking any more comments on this issue, but I'm still be moving on to the audience-generated questions. Those will be taken from our Twitter. If anyone has a question that is longer, you can approach it with paper, but due to time constraints, we're only going to be taking you. So without further ado, I'll hand that over to Lady Willard.
All right, if you guys sent your question at the beginning of the debate, if you could just
Anyway, next question.
Next question. What changes could Georgetown make to more effectively meet its social justice imperatives? Yeah.
Those are the main?
Yeah.
So one thing that I think the work of the Multicultural Council has been really helpful, but I think we have to go further. It'd be great if we could start some majors like Chicano Studies is important. Latino. We want to expand services for. Fuck, what am I saying? You know what? I'm gonna pass. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm getting wrapped up in it. Sit in silence, guys. Come on.
So I think something that's extremely important that GUSA does and continues to do a better job with is reaching out to these marginalized students, to these people that I talked about in my introductory statement, the two Georgetowns, the people who are traditionally not involved in GUSA, so that they can feel represented and engaged in the process. Because we really can have a real policy impact and make meaningful change, but we need to engage as many different perspectives as possible.
I'll throw out one concrete idea. Sarah and I want to start a partnership with the Alumni Association to fund smart trip cards to make it so that students who have high financial need can actually go down to the Hill to work unpaid internships without paying for transportation out of their own pockets. It's something that the CSA already does to some good effect, and so we want to copy that for unpaid internships.
So I think there's a lot of things that goes into. One is working with the CMEA and SOCA in basically increasing the amount of advisors available to students of color. So there's only one real advisor available to Latino students right now, and increasing that, working on getting underrepresented minority spaces on campus where they can meet and feel safe is another thing that we want to do. Working to increase collaboration, increase knowledge of the different centers for diversity, and the LGBTQ center are other things that I think we would really want to focus on to increase social justice university.
Thank you.
So Chris and I met with Dr. Kilkenny of the CSJ, and actually, interestingly enough, this is the 40th year of their alternative spring break, or now it's just alternative break. And so we are building a 40 for 40 campaign because I believe it's 40% of students get rejected from alternative spring break when that is philanthropic work. And so as a Jesuit institution and just fundamentally, I think that sends a wrong message. When you're trying to do work, you have to apply for it and you get turned away. So we're working to increase that with Dr. Kilkenny.
Thank you. Next question. Not be extending comments at this time. Great.
Next question, what do you think was Trevor and Omika's biggest failure?
That's me. I love you guys, Trevor and Amika. But unfortunately, we've talked to a number of students, and while the principles behind the Multicultural Council and the initial implementation were down the right path, we think it didn't get the proper stakeholder buy-in that it otherwise could have. We've met with a lot of students in groups that, really appreciated the ideas and the principles behind it, but didn't buy into it because the relationship wasn't started on the right foot.
Yeah, so I agree that the rollout of the Multicultural Council was flawed. I think you improve on that by actually going around and having discussions with cultural groups about what they'd like to see represented in the Multicultural Council this next year, not by scrapping it entirely, because as Will just suggested, it is a good idea and it should be done right.
So, I love you guys, but so the one thing that kind of came to a head recently was the proposed referendum on student housing and the campus plan coming up, and I felt that the failure here was a failure of communication between GUSA and between the Senate and the executive, and I think that improving that, along with everything said about the Multicultural Association, so improving communication basically is the one thing I think that they could have really improved upon, but overall I think they did a great job. It's just that one thing really.
So again, the Multicultural Advisory Board, I think shaking things up and trying to rearrange how groups are funded is something to definitely look into after a lot of conversation. However, fundamentally, after we had half a dozen leaders come in to speak on FINAP and kind of get their 2 cents, and hearing it from the horse's mouth, I don't know that it was the right idea. So, we might think it sounds right, but like, for all those in LASA being one of the largest multicultural groups, is that actually what they want? And so maybe creating a multicultural advisory board is not the way to go about it.
I love you too, and I think the Multicultural Council was great. I still think the biggest failure is student engagement. If you had asked this question to a regular person, they wouldn't have an answer, and I think that's the biggest problem. GUSA is too far removed from people. And it's, that's what it should be. That's what GUSA should be. It should be there for getting people's issues and responding to them. But unfortunately, most people don't know what you've done.
Thank you. Next question.
Yes.
Who of the other candidates would your campaign cross-endorse?
Okay, does that go to me? So actually, I'm very happy tonight to be talking about our cross-endorsement with Chris and Meredith. We're really urging all of our supporters to put Chris and Meredith second on their ballots. And we were talking about that before, but we've really respected the way that they've run their campaign, the values behind their team, and frankly, the positive energy that they've really carried through this whole campaign.
So I guess that I have to go with Abby and Will, because I feel as though they have I like the way that Abby has done her job in as vice speaker, and we feel as though their platform, a lot of parts of it are very similar to ours. We feel as though there are a lot of synergies there as well, and so I really like their platform. I like what they've done on campus, and that's why I would encourage everyone who's not to put them second, basically.
Yes, thank you. So yes, after conversation and kind of seeing how people carried themselves, clean campaigns is what I'm about. I know that's what Chris is about, and that is what has made our team pure and transparent. And so I think Sarah and Ryan mimic that, and so we decided to cross-endorse with each other, and speaks to the collaborative nature. So.
We wouldn't cross endorse with anybody. Nobody shares our values. But you know, there are campaigns that we personally feel are stronger than others. I'm not going to say them and become a pariah up here, but no one.
So I want to echo what Reno said and urge everyone who puts us first to put Tim and Reno second. We do believe that they have the right experience and the right approach to GUSA with a lot of really innovative ideas. However, I also want to urge our supporters to put Joe and Connor third, as we believe that their engaging and really interesting approach to getting more people involved in GUSA really will truly be beneficial for the institution.
He meant to say first, by the way.
Thank you all. And final audience questions.
All right.
Just to reiterate, this will be our last audience-generated question of the night. After that, we'll go into closing statements, which will mercifully be 2.5 minutes.
In the next couple of years, Georgetown will be renegotiating its contract with Aramark. How do you think Georgetown can improve the dining experience, especially from the GUSA perspective?
Okay, so the first thing they can do is not renegotiate their contracts with Aramark, but actually cast a search for other vendors. They didn't do that when the last time the contract ran out, when Clara and Vale were in charge, and because it happened over the summer, and there was an student engagement, and stopping that in its tracks and preventing like a shadow deal from occurring is the major thing that we need to do. Second is expanding meal swipe access in Hoya Court, and also expanding access in Bulldog Tavern as well. So right now, Bulldog Tavern is 21 plus on Saturdays, and there's no like fast food arrangement you can get there, nothing you can swipe meals for, nothing you use flex dollars for there. Changing that, making Bulldog Tavern more accessible to students is something that we're really passionate about fighting for.
So I've had the pleasure of working on Georgetown Day for my second year now, but getting to work with Joelle Weiss has been an insight to the contractual agreements that we have with a lot of corporate entities. And so Aramark, sure they do it their way, but they're pretty large and bureaucratic themselves, and so working with Bon Appetit with the Bulldog Tavern is a working example of how other models function. Also, we're looking to extend the jurisdiction of the Go Card. It was very feasible at Villanova, as you could go to the suburbs and go to Sweetgreen and go to the dry cleaners with your Go Card. So,
Right. First order of business is to get rid of Aramark and go with a different company. As a transfer student, I could say I really didn't like George Mason University's dining, but I could say I hate it here. What was nice about that is that you could extend meal swipes to almost any restaurant in the area, and get a pretty good bulk of food for it too. So I'd obviously want to expand into the surrounding areas, maybe get more third parties on campus, but also just the facilities. Leo's like, I know it's a thing you guys complain about a lot, but silverware, cups. Oh, am I done?
You are done. I'm
Sorry,
afraid.
guys.
So yeah, I think we have a crucial opportunity to use the renegotiation of the Aramark contract as leverage to get Aramark to improve their services, not only by expanding meal swipes to Hoya Court, but by improving the conditions for their workers, by ensuring that their workers are fairly treated and justly compensated. However, additionally, if Aramark doesn't want to go along with these requests, we can begin a search for an alternative vendor.
Yeah, I think on our platform we pretty clearly delineate exactly what we're going to be pursuing on the dining front. Number one is expanding the meal swipe options in Hoya Court. Number two is going to be forming a student search committee to issue a report to university administrators before Aramark's contract is up, so that they know exactly what students are pushing for in a written document.
All right. Before we move to closing statements, we want to thank everybody who came out. Monday at 7:30, there will be the presidential debate. It's looking like it's going to be in the Healy Family Student Center Great Room. So we hope to see you guys all out there. And now we are going to move to closing statements.
Yeah, for closing statements, you have 2.5 minutes. This time we'll be starting with Reno and then moving in the complete opposite order we've been doing all night. So Ryan and then.
All right. Finally, the best is first. So anyway, I've been arguing with him about the alphabet order, but I'd just like to I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I'd just like to reiterate that everything we do for GUSA is kind of absurd. We all know it. But it serves a purpose for his university. And moving beyond the social media realm for GUSA and moving towards an active administration, moving towards forcing administrators to be more involved in student life so that we can bring all of the disaffected groups onto campus into a more unified Georgetown that goes with the love that Tim and I share for this institution. I think that all of us love this institution to some degree, but it can be better. And that's ultimately what we want. We want a better Georgetown. And through this, there are many things that need to be improved immediately that I want to talk about. We need to improve mental health services. We need to delay the campus plan negotiations going on that are, they're trying to finalize their current draft in May. That needs to get stopped, and the current administration needs to work on that immediately. We need to have a renegotiation of our contract at Aramark. We need to expand the What's a Hoya program to include more students, not just freshmen, but also transfers, and also expand it a great deal more. So there are a lot of programs on Georgetown's campus that do a lot of good things. And ultimately, what I think Tim and I want is using our experience both inside and outside of GUSA, both in access to benefit groups and non-access benefit groups, and trying to get non-access benefit groups access to benefits. It's a mouthful, but whatever. We want to use existing bodies basically to make life better here. We don't think that radical change is possible for one administration to achieve. And while we also have a 20-page platform, I think it's actually 19 pages, but we think that everything there is realistic. Nothing in there is something that can never be done. It's something that just requires hard work, which is what we're ultimately going to be able to do with your help. So I'd just like to wrap up and say thank you guys for listening to me and for staying engaged throughout the entire debate. And remember that we're doing this not because of other reasons, but because we want to see this place become a beautiful campus for the next 20 years. That in 2038, we don't want skyscrapers on Healy Lawn or skyscraper in front of Leo's or whatever. We want the green space. We want a place for caps that's not in the middle of Darnell. We want all this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Szymanski.
Okay guys, so I'll just keep this brief because I guess I should just start by thanking the three of you who came in here not having decided who you were voting for. I hope you could all leave now having a better idea, but I guess you'll probably also be attending the presidential debate on Monday. But really, I just think it's worth at this point reflecting on what GUSA's real role should be. I think most candidates up here would agree that there's an advocacy role for GUSA, but I think that Sarah and I have the best idea out there of what precisely those advocacy roles should be. I think you can look at our platform, you can look at the specific policies that we want to pursue, and you can see that we've thought of more things, more particular items than any other ticket has had the chance to really consider. I think we're going to have a really good shot at accomplishing every one of them. I think when you get into discussions about marginalized student groups on campus, when you get into discussions about campus planning, when you get into discussion about funding reform, these all kind of seem like pie-in-the-sky ideas, but the reality is that unless you start on them at some point, unless you really engage with the student body to just make things like this happen, if you don't put the ideas out there, then it's never going to happen. So we have the ideas, and I urge you to actually take a look at the platform, because it's become kind of my own Bible throughout this campaign. But take a look through it. Look at any sections that interest you, because I can tell you that there's nobody who's going to come in with a better sense of what the problems are and how to fix them than Sarah and I. Thank you guys.
So there are really serious issues affecting our student body and our campus. And unfortunately, there's a disconnect that some students just don't understand what GUSA does and don't understand that it can really solve these issues. These issues affect people in real ways, and GUSA can really improve them. From hiring new trauma specialists at CAPS, to creating a pre-professional fund that allows students of lower socioeconomic status to buy clothing for internships and travel to their internships, to ensuring that everyone feels represented and included in the discussion. These are things that GUSA can do and should do and will do if we engage with all the students. Additionally, the campus plan that is coming up will dictate the next 20 years of this university. A generation of Hoyas will fall under this campus plan. And we can only ensure that we have an equitable and fair seat at that table if we fundamentally change the way GUSA interacts with students. If we ensure that students are engaged and involved in the process, that it doesn't look like GUSA is this group of 50 or 75, 200 people that are self-absorbed and ambitious. If it looks like they're just normal students who take the time to make the personal connection and show students that these things matter, will fundamentally change the way GUSA interacts with students so that all of us can rise together. Thank you.
So the first thing I want to do is get untripped up and explain social justice to you. Let me explain it to you. So in addition to what all these people said, we want to support Professor Howard's prison outreach program. We want to incorporate more classes into the Doyle program for social justice. We want to expand safe rides to have disability access. We want to have a policy on ASL translators and have that be funded through tuition and not through student organizations, which is a drain. So, any other questions that I may not have been able to answer tonight? You may notice that it was about GUSA bureaucracy. I'm not from GUSA. I've never been a part of it. The closest I've done is I've done the transfer mentorship program, but that has nothing to do with the bureaucracy. But ultimately, that's a problem, not only for me, but for all of you, because you don't know what's going on either. You know, I come up here and I'm running for a post, and you could say, well, this guy, you couldn't answer a question about that thing you do. You see? And I couldn't. I'm not familiar. But that's the problem. We need to tell you what we're doing. You need to know what's going on. And I don't feel comfortable, considering past GUSA campaigns, to know that it's going to be done right. If it's not done in a non-traditional way, a way that stimulates students, newly, effectively, fresh. So I encourage all of you to vote Luther Rowan. We're good boys. We're very handsome. We had a kissing booth. Come along to the next one if we have another one. Good luck. God bless. Good night.
All right, thank you everyone for listening to us and allowing us to share our ideas with you. At the end of the day, I don't think that I don't want this year to be about all the things that are on the platform anymore. Because at the end of the day, mental health, sexual assault, the campus plan, green space on campus, it's all going to be attended to because people are passionate about it, and it's just a need for having a utopia on campus. However, I think that there's a greater issue at stake. And it's not about how long your platform is, what great points you have to offer, but rather the people that are leading that culture and how that trickles down into the team that's then implementing those things. And so Chris and I are so dearly passionate about not only this hilltop, but the people of Georgetown. And I think that our character in taking the time to say hello and ask genuinely how you are, because the word busy, I hate saying it, I try not to, because people literally do sleep when they're dead at Georgetown. We all know everybody is very busy. And so when push comes to shove, it's not about the Buy a Brick program or the Funding Your Future program that Chris and I would like to implement, but rather how we are going to implement that. And it's not about how we're going to win this election. It's not about winning this election, pardon me. It's about how we're going to win this election and the people in which we win it with. And so collectively, I hope that you can understand the genuine nature in which we are coming from and not wanting to. I don't think that this is a race between candidates. I think it's merely a race of what you want Georgetown to be. What is your vision for it? Because institutionally, GUSA's been the same, and if something's not done at a more macro level, it's going to continue to stay that way. And so it's not about what platform's the best, it's what character is going to best lead Georgetown for the next year, and build those bridges between the administration, student groups, and the silos that have inevitably existed on this campus to make the bureaucracy so difficult to thrive in. So I think together we can bring dignity back to campus, and while we use the word a lot, I think it's pretty genuine and we dig it. So we hope you do too. Thanks, guys.
All right, and with that, I'd just like to thank our candidates for sitting up here and taking all your questions. Thank you to the audience.